I think Kenyans are still not ready for the whole custom process, because sometimes you have a bride coming in and then they have their mother or their friend saying, are you sure you want your dress made? You know how fundis behave. And then they don't know that there's a difference between a fundi and a designer. And there's actually very clear distinction, you know. So
tailors have really ruined the reputation for you guys.
badly, you know. So that's something that I've had to take time to educate the market and say that there's actually a distinction, and you can make a gown and it's ready on time, and it looks equally good as if you bought it from the store.
Now, ever since I was a little girl, I had this dream. It sounds very cliche, but like many other girls, I had this sketchbook of my dream wedding dress, and I had all these designs. And as I grew older, the designs became more sophisticated. And let me be honest, it's so exciting to finally meet somebody who actually makes these dreams come true.
Wow.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Please introduce yourself, and have you met clients like me who just came to you with a very bizarre sketchbook and said, this is the dress I want?
Yeah, wow. Okay. My name is Valerie Mwango. Professionally, I'm a fashion designer, more specifically a bridal gown designer. And to answer your question, yes, I think many of us have very interesting childhood dreams of having this perfect wedding gown. There's a client I know who knew that she was going to have a watercolored wedding gown.
Wow. And
now she looks at it and she's like, okay, that is not really practical.
The concept is, and the reality is different.
Very fantasy, and then there's reality and practicality. So for me, my work actually helps people like you with those big dreams, kind of bring them together and practicalize them into something that's still beautiful, still fantasy oriented, but practical.
Okay.
Yes.
And how exactly did you get into fashion? You said you're a fashion designer. Yes. How did you get into it?
So I think from a very early age, I've considered myself an artist. Like, I loved art. I loved crafts. I loved creating different things. So as I continued progressing, even in my studies and, you know, I wanted to be a scientist, by the way. But then it reached a point, I think, during biology class, I realized I can't dissect animals. So I don't think this is the path for me. But I was an art lover. So I think with time, I discovered my canvas. I like playing around with clothes, trying to come up with different ideas on how garments can be worn. So that is how I landed into fashion, or rather the love of fashion. And that was around high school. Then obviously I went to uni, but I didn't study fashion. Like every African parent tells you, go and get a degree. Okay, so I have a degree in marketing. Did that, worked for a few years in corporate, and then I was like, you know what, this dream is still burning inside. So I decided to branch off in 2016 officially and just go full force. And
how exactly was the transition, especially from corporate, where you have for lack of a better word, sustainable income. At the end of the month, you know, I have money coming into my bank account. Do you now going out there and venturing out on your own, which is a bit scary? So how was the transition?
So I think the transition started maybe about a year or so before. I'd mentioned to my parents, because that time I was at home. I told them I actually want to pursue this, and they had told me, they'd given me their word that you go do your degree and then we can figure out how you can go and do fashion afterwards. So when I was eventually ready to be like, you know what, I need to do this, they said, okay, what you can do, why don't you start saving up? Save up, because I was also a part of a circle. And then also my dad, being a personal finance coach, he trained me in terms of making my finances, you know, come together. So even told me, what are you going to contribute? Because I had to go to fashion school first. So he asked me, what are you willing to contribute towards this dream of yours? So I said, I guess I can, let me save up for a year and then see where that will take me. So even when I was leaving, I didn't feel the huge impact of not having money even afterwards.
It was a planned thing.
It was a planned thing. However, sometimes even planned things, things don't pick up as fast as you imagine, you know. But for me, I think the transition helped. First of all, I transitioned was at home. So it was easier to kind of learn the ropes while I still have a cushion, you know, underneath. So I had saved up, went to fashion school for about a year. So in fashion school, I paid for my own what are they called? Not even tuition, because my dad said he was willing to pay the tuition. And then there's materials, because fashion school is very expensive.
Yeah.
You have to buy your fabrics, you have to buy your scissors, you have to buy everything that you need, all your tools. So for me, I was catering for my projects for fashion school. So that's how that transition happened, at least into fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And listening to your story, it's a bit interesting because for most African, you know, households, all they want you to do is pursue that very conventional career. And sometimes you're very quick to be resentful, but then you realize it's coming from a place of, I just want safety for you, okay? Just have this safety net in case anything else happens. So if it's not fashion, what would it have been? What else would you, in a parallel universe, what else would you have pursued?
I think, funny enough, my parents never pressured me to follow a particular career path. But I think if it was not fashion, I would be fully immersed in the business world, because I still have a passion for running businesses. So, and then if it wasn't for business, if I had pursued the science thing, maybe I would have been a doctor. And I guess that's the thing that every African parent wants you to pursue, some serious career. But for me, I think it was just, it was either business. I think that was it. I can't imagine me doing anything else. Or maybe a singer.
Oh, okay. It's all very artsy, okay?
Yeah, it would be art related in some sense,
Okay, awesome. And we have talked about, how fashion is a very broad thing, So how exactly did you end up specifically doing wedding gowns and wedding related things?
So in the process of discovering what I want, I think I enjoyed the process of creativity. I realized within ready to wear, there was not a lot of creative freedom. But when I would look at gowns, when I would look at the red carpet, when I would look at bridal gowns, I'm like, oh, okay, I can play around with fabric and I can do so much with it that you would not, like, you'd make clothes that you wouldn't wear every other day. And I think that pulled me and that attracted me towards that. And then also after I made my first wedding gown, I realized this is actually something that makes sense, because naturally I'm introverted. So I enjoy one-on-one conversations where I can be able to, the small talk is not the best for some of us. So the one-on-one conversations, walking a bride through the whole process of wedding planning and, just like also being a shoulder to lean on, I realized, I think combining my interest in creating beautiful garments versus also working with, brides in this particular season, that was a perfect combination. So I said, you know what, I think let's just dive into this.
You have said that you're quite introverted, but now I'm thinking dealing with bridezillas and brides in general, it needs somebody who, come out of their shell and actually have, these conversations with people, sometimes be very assertive in what you're saying and in your decisions. So how exactly are you able to, deal with clients with their personalities and then here comes you and you're very, mellow and everything?
So the funny thing is, the misconception is that introverts are not assertive, which is not true. So for me, I think I've grown up in a household where I've seen a very assertive woman putting her foot down, knowing what she wants. So even as a designer, if I haven't encountered bridezillas per se, not yet, thank God, thank God, thank God. But for me, I think I normally try and create boundaries. So when you come to me and we have that conversation on what you want in terms to be done with your gown, I can tell you what is possible and what is not possible. So when you try and bring ideas and just force your way through, I tell you, you know what, to be honest, sorry, this is not possible. If you feel I'm not up to the task, there are many other people who can be able to do what you want. So it's just a matter of drawing boundaries, nothing to do necessarily coming out of your shell, and because an introvert, if you're not careful, you'll be walked on by people left, right and center. So
and the wedding industry is, for lack of a better term, very things fluctuate a lot. There's a time where it's wedding season, there's a time when it's very slow. So how exactly are you able to stay afloat when it's not wedding season?
So interestingly, people are getting married every month.
As fast as they're getting divorced.
Unless, sadly, but unless it was like the COVID season where there was no weddings whatsoever. Every month there's a wedding. So to say that there are low seasons is a bit of not quite true, I think, when you talk about weddings. Maybe it's just a season for the business where you don't have a lot of brides coming in.
Yeah.
So for us, what I'm trying to do is to branch off and have like now a mini ready to wear. So I have a new page where I've opened, written Ari's Closet. So like just showcasing wardrobe pieces that you can wear every day, that we can make but then also wear. So that kind of keeps us afloat. And then the honest truth is, even in this economy, sometimes you need another side job, another side gig, you know. So I help with social media with some other brands. So that's what kind of helps me balance.
Yeah.
And keep on.
You have mentioned COVID, and this is it was a very unprecedented thing that happened to everyone,
Yes.
to the whole planet, basically. And a lot of people were up and stuck, you know. Your business depends on human interaction, depends on people coming in.
Yeah.
So now, when it was that time, what happened to you? And would you say that if it was to happen again, this time I have a better strategy to actually go through that season?
So here's the thing. 2020 was a very interesting year for me personally, because that's the year I got married, actually. So I can't say that I was full in business. I think I was still trying to find my footing. I can say that I officially like plunged into the whole bridal and fashion full force last year in January. So that's 2022. So in 2020 was also like learning ropes for me. Trying to figure out, do I really want to do bridal? Do I really want to go this route? So I would do a few gowns here and there. I did my own, I did my sister's. So I didn't feel the impact of COVID necessarily. Yeah. Because I was also in a very weird space as a creative. You know, sometimes creative have those slumps of, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm just, you know. So I think for me, I would say God kind of covered me, allowed me to kind of just grow in that period where there's no pressure to perform, there's no pressure, you know, just try and figure out what I want to do. Yeah.
Okay. And some people would say that, you know, weddings sell themselves, wedding gowns sell themselves basically. But what marketing strategies do you use right now? Do you rely on word of mouth or referrals, or do you have like a set strategic plan for you to get more clients?
So the marketing strategy that I've realized makes sense in this day and age is actually content marketing and social media. So I'm leveraging quite a bit on that, because I realized old school methods are not very viable or effective in this day and age. Not that they can't be used, but they're super expensive. So I think social media has become a blessing in that it's allowed you to do all the marketing, because I said I was a marketing, I've done marketing. So it allows you to apply all the things you've learned in marketing and just put it on socials. So I've realized most of my brides come from social media, mostly Instagram, and then also word of mouth. So yeah, that's
okay. And given how everything is always evolving and changing, you really cannot compare the traditional weddings to now modern weddings. There's been quite the transition. People are trying new things. People are being as audacious as having colors in their wedding gowns, you know. What is that? So now how are you able to keep up with all these new trends, you know, going on?
So I'm that designer who actually designs colored gowns. Wow. I like
a black wedding dress.
Yes, I love breaking the mold, but I think Kenyans are still very conservative. Still very conservative. So we are trying to introduce a concept of now like color, for example, you know, into the market. For example, a jumpsuit, because not many brides would go for jumpsuit or pantsuit. So one of the things that I like looking at is high fashion, haute couture. The runway, like what are other designers, international designers doing? I don't particularly like following trends, but I keep them in mind. So even when I'm designing for a client, like the collection we did for this year for our wedding gowns, incorporated color, incorporated the bow, because those are some of the things that actually were trending for this year. So I like just trying to see what is different, what is unique. I don't follow trends, even if it means going back to a fashion show from a designer maybe 10 years ago and I find something that looks unique, I try and incorporate it in some of the pieces. and just educating the market and tell them you don't have to have white. Like white is no longer the in thing, you know. It's not, it doesn't have to be a white gown.
You can try something different.
Different completely, you know. You can try blush, but then obviously there's a thin balance between having a wedding gown and then also a red carpet gown.
Yes.
You don't want to look like you're going for a red carpet event for your wedding, you know. So those are some of the things that can be discussed even when I talk to my clients.
And so far as a woman in business, what would you say success looks like to you?
Wow, that's a hard question.
It really is.
Success for me, and that has been something I've been trying to learn over the years, because when you're in business, sometimes there's a pressure for you to perform. There's a pressure for you to always be on top of your game. So for me, success is when I see that bride smiling, walking down the aisle, or I get a text message saying, "Thank you so much for making my day beautiful and gorgeous." I think when I see that, for me, I feel like I've achieved, you know. Or even when you have a bride saying, "Thank you so much for walking with me this journey. It was very difficult, but you're the one who brought sanity to my whole process." That for me is success.
Client satisfaction.
Client satisfaction 100.
Awesome.
Yeah.
In the wedding business, you know, do you just solely stick to making wedding gowns, or are there new things you're doing to diversify, you know, your art and your craft?
For us specifically, I don't just do white wedding gowns. So there's traditional wedding gowns, and then bridesmaids dresses, and then wedding guests. So that is the farthest that we decided to work with, to at least widen the scope, because I feel like there's still a lot you can do within those particular spaces, especially traditional weddings. I feel like there's a lot that somebody can play with in that sense. So that's how we've diversified so far.
And what would you say sets your business aside? Because there are many people who are doing what you are doing. What sets you aside? Or sets you apart from the competition?
This is a very interesting question. I normally think about it like, if you were to ask a musician what sets them apart from other musicians, what would they say?
Their style is different.
Their style it's their sound, and it's very unique to them. And that's the same thing that how I view art, because for me I view it as an art. I see that what I do is unique to my artistic ability. So maybe somebody else might be able to replicate it, but maybe you can't work with the brides. You know, you can't be able to advise, you can't be able to bring some sanity to people, you know. So for me, I look at it as, it's just my artistic touch. Me as an artist, the way you'd like this artist's drawing and you like this other artist's drawing, they're very different. They have their own unique styles, but I mean, they're definitely distinct. So for me, it's just the fact that this is my craft, and this is the skill that I share with the world.
And you did not tell us the name of your business.
Oh, my bad. So the business is Ari by Tafari. By Tafari because it's under the umbrella of House of Tafari. So we do various things under that umbrella, but one of them now is a fashion business. So it's Ari by Tafari. And
given how you started, I think it was last year or the
officially
year before?
Last year.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's fairly new.
Yes.
Is it a one-man show, or do you now have people working under you? And how has that experience been?
So I realized I cannot do business alone. I think it's an illusion for somebody to think that you can grow alone. So I realized I needed to get an assistant. So right now we are 2 in the team. Somebody who can be able to manage production, manage, you know, design, run the studio while I'm away looking for business. So yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to grow with time. But even as I was starting the business, I'd already like designated structures. Like I said, this is what I need in my business. So even as I'm going along, I know the areas that I need to fill in as we continue.
Earlier on, we had talked about practicality, especially when it comes to people like me who have this, you know, very big fantasies of, I want the tail to have glowing LED lights and something like that. So now when it comes to now fashion and practicality. Yes, practicality. How are you able now to make the two of them into one seamless theme?
Okay. So the thing with design, I think design makes sense if there's practicality in it. If I can't get into the dress, it's just some fantasy, you know, piece of paper in theory. So even in the process of designing, I have to think through, how can this garment be closed? How can the person get into it? How will it be washed when they are moving? Will it be comfortable, or will they have to just be all the way stiff, you know? So even as I'm designing, like, you may have some clients who say, I want to be snatched, all, like, completely. I tell them, you can be snatched, but you will not sit down. Do you want to stand out? Do you want to stand up through your whole wedding process? So I think over time I've learned how to incorporate creativity and also practicality, you know. Yeah.
Okay. And the spaces you work in can be very emotionally charged, you know, because it's a lot of things going on, especially for the bride. They can be a bit overwhelmed. And then we have, you know, you've mentioned, you know, being snatched. I want to look good on my wedding. So as you're starting the process of creating this wedding gown, do you encounter people who are like, you know what, I'm actually going on a diet. So I know right now we're making we're making a size 12 dress, but maybe just make it a size 10, because by the time we're done, you know, I'm going to be this specific, you know, size or this specific weight. So now how are you able to go through the motions with your bride and, you know, just make sure that everything turns out perfectly, regardless of how emotional they are about the process?
So I like to be real, you know. I always say, or I tell them, if you've not been working out the last 6 months or the last 1 year, no, let's not live in fantasy land.
Miracles.
Unless Jesus himself comes and touches you and you know, but chances of that happening is very minimal. So what I normally say is that let's work with what you have right now, your body type, and we can still make it look equally as beautiful and equally as gorgeous. So and I think also my job is very it's like a therapist, you know. I have to understand where you're coming from. I have to understand your psychology, like, why do you feel that way about yourself? Why do you feel like you must lose the weight right now? If you don't lose it, what's the problem? Is the issue your tummy? Do you want us to hide? We can figure out a way of hiding it without, you know, having all those issues. So it's emotionally charged, but then also I like to be real with you. I tell you, if you've not worked out, let's not try and it's happened before, by the way. If there's enough time, I say, okay, fine, we are not going to take your measurements this time. I can give you 1 month. Okay, you can do whatever I need to do in 1 month. If there's any changes, fantastic, we can take the measurements. If nothing, let's just work with what we have.
In this day and age where content influencing influencers, that's pretty much how people, you know, get the message across. So have you done collaborations with other houses and other, you know, influential people?
Not quite. I can say yes and no. I have a few influencer friends, so obviously they've posted a thing or two for me. But reaching out to them, I feel like it's a very crowded space, in the sense that if I give you my business to showcase for me, you're going to go to somebody else, and, you know, like, there'll be no brand loyalty. So you're just doing a business because you're trying to influence and make people buy the product. So I'm very cautious when it comes to influencer marketing. But then, and in terms of collaborations, there's something I'm working on, because I believe in, if we come together, work together, the industry grows. So still trying to work on that. It's been a bit of a challenge, but I think there's some good progress on the way.
And so far, what would you say are some of the challenges you've actually encountered, and how have you found a way to get past them?
I think one of the challenges that I've encountered and still encountering is, I think, breaking into the market with a unique idea. I think Kenyans are still not ready for the whole custom process, because sometimes you have a bride coming in and then they have their mother or their friend saying, are you sure you want your dress made? You know how fundis behave. And then they don't know that there's a difference between a fundi and a designer. And there's actually very clear distinction, you know. So
tailors have really ruined the reputation for you guys.
Badly, you know. So that's something that I've had to take time to educate the market and say that there's actually a distinction, and you can make a gown and it's ready on time, and it looks equally good as if you bought it from the store.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's the only challenge you've encountered?
No, not really. I mean, challenges in business are many, you know. And normally, I like saying, business can teach you proper character development. So keeping your head intact and even just your mental space intact, because there are those days when there's no business. So then what happens? You have bills looking at you. You have somebody you need to pay. So what then happens? So I think that has been one of my biggest challenges in navigating. But I must say that I think my faith has also helped me, keep me grounded rather. Constantly going back to God and being like, this is a skill that you've given me. This is a talent that you've given me. I'm struggling to maintain it. I'm struggling to get this thing going, you know. So that has kind of given me a bit of refreshment, you know, in the process. And there are many other challenges. I mean, we could have a show on the challenges that we face, but
True.
Yeah, that's
And
for now.
speaking of finances, especially when it comes to the client, because having a wedding is not a cheap affair, you know, and having a wedding gown, especially custom made, it's fairly expensive.
Yeah.
So now, do you have like payment plans, or how are you able to become flexible on behalf of the client, you know, for them to have their dream wedding gown and for you to have, you know, for it to make sense financially on your end?
By the time a bride is coming to get a custom gown, you already know you're going to spend money. So I think it's usually advisable that you start setting aside the money, you know, imagining, maybe depending on the type of gown. Of course, you will ask around. You will be told this gown might go for 60,000, this one will be 80, this one will be 100. So you psychologically start preparing to actually pay that. So for us, what we normally do is I just say 50% deposit and then 50 when you're collecting your gown. So far that has worked for me. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you say to somebody who has this dream, you know, and they want, it's a dream in their head, it's an idea, and they don't know how to just make it into something functional or to make it a reality? What words of advice would you give them?
So now that's where people like us, designers, come in. We'll sit with you, try and understand, because sometimes, you know, people may be talking, they have these ideas, but they can't clearly communicate.
True.
I think also with time you get experience to realize, okay, this person is asking for maybe an off shoulder, or maybe they want pearls or something on their dress, you know. So just listening to them and trying to figure out, okay, is this what you want? And then also the other thing I normally recommend is use Pinterest or use Instagram. Like if there's a specific feature that you like on a gown, save it. If there's a specific detail that you've seen and you're like, I must have this, save it. So when you're coming, by the time you're coming to me,
you have an idea.
I have an idea, and even you have an idea of what you're trying to articulate. So when you come, we'll look at all the options that you have, and then now we try and create something that makes sense.
Okay, awesome. And we never have enough time on our show. So where can people reach you on social media, or if you have a phone number to call or something?
So on social media, we are Ari_by Tafari, that is Instagram. You can also reach me on 0702 090 657.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for making the dream come true for so many women out there, you know, me included, inshallah. So there you have it. We had Tafari, House of Tafari today, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you have any comments or anything you'd like to ask her, the number is 0770-729-366. My name is Turi Faye, and this is The Millionaire Mind.